having grown up the way I did, ambitious, always having to do more, going to school where you had to always do more for high school, for undergrad, for graduate school, it definitely can be difficult to just sit down and recognize my way of doing this is my way of doing this, and that's okay.
Welcome to Working Women Mentor, the podcast that delivers mentorship in every conversation. Each episode, we meet remarkable women who share the real moments, challenges, and breakthroughs that shape their journeys. These are stories that inspire, empower, and remind us of what is possible. I'm your host, Rani Alfers, and I cannot wait for you to meet today's guest. Let's jump in and uncover your next mentor moment. Kerry Ann King. She is the founder and CEO of Illuminate Labs. She has developed an incredible app, Fin, and we'll talk more about it in the episode. But she is someone who is in the tech industry, but approaches this from a human kindness level. She wants to make sure that we all have solutions for a better well being. And I think the idea of the last 20 years of her career, culminating to where she is today, what she's offering, and how she understands us as a whole, women, men, society, all of us out there is incredible. As I say this with everyone, but we really could have talked for hours. And I'm really excited to introduce you to Kerry Ann, the great advice and mentorship, but additionally, the perspective that she gives you on all of our topics. It's all just a little bit different. She makes you think. And so please join in and meet Kerry Ann King. Here we go. Kerry Ann, I'm Rani Alfers. Welcome to Working Women Mentor. Thank you for being a guest. Thank you for your generosity of time today. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be here. Like, mentorship is one of the core principles of my life. So being able to talk about that kind of stuff with you is really exciting.
Well, there's nothing more passionate than that. The core of my life. I love it. Well, what a strong introduction. So tell us a little bit about you in your own words. Introduce yourself.
I'm Kerry Ann King. I'm the founder and CEO of Illuminate Labs, which is a software company that is dedicated to decolonizing technology and making tech that focuses on human well-being.
It sounds so simple. Like that's it. That's all you do, right?
A little this, a little of that.
Just a little tech. That's easy for humans. That's all. Before we get started, I ask all of our guests to text a friend and ask how they would describe you to us because we're just getting to meet you. And I'd love to hear what your circle has to say.
So this is so hard because I'm looking down at my phone because so many people said so many nice things and trying to figure out.
Oh, just start from the top.
I have to say thank you, Noelle, Jeremy, Kristen, Cindy T, Cindy M, Ben, and Rob, Hank and Holly. Like, so many people said so many sweet things, but I decided that the best way to do this was to pick my oldest friend and my newest friend.
You've got a process. I love this.
So my oldest friend I've known for 44 years, Rob Wu, and he said, energetic, friendly, extrovert, thoughtful, and caring. Pleasure to hang out with one-on-one and someone that I'm really, really happy and blessed to have kept in touch with since I met her in the fall of 1980. We met in 7th grade.
Oh, I love that.
He's an amazing guy. And then the other one is from a friend of mine, Cindy Merman, who has been such a joy in my life. You can make new friends at any time. Cindy's 85, and we've just been friends for less than 2 years. She said Kerry Ann is exquisitely aware and enlivens every interaction. She seamlessly relates to even the most grumpy and withdrawn. In a word, Kerry Ann sparkles. So thank you to
Oh,
everybody who responded to me. It was such an honor to hear all of that. It's a great exercise that you put in the show.
thank you. It is. It's so fun as well to see you grow. I'm thanking your oldest and newest friend as well. Hopefully, it's something you save on your text for a while. Good. Well, okay, let's talk a little bit more about you because this is all about you and mentorship and everything that you have to share with us. So, I know that you took a major career shift and you did it midlife ish and with a background in psychology and philosophy, you really wanted to find a way to culminate those pieces together and start this new career. So, could you kind of take us down this path of where you started, your new company, how you transitioned?
So it's interesting. In my mind, it's less of a non sequitur. For a lot of my career, for almost 12 years, I worked for a company called Exos that was embedded at Google. And both of those organizations are very focused on tech and very focused on innovation. Through that whole period, I was involved in all of these projects that were tech focused, innovation focused. I was sitting in a Google office 5 days a week, kind of just being part of that. I actually got recruited by some developer advocates at one point to help them conceive and develop an app for well-being and wellness. So I do have a bit of a more meandering career path than most people have, but really it feels very aligned with everything I've done in the past. And then in terms of psychology and philosophy, like that's really where the human well-being piece comes for me because I'm interested in people's well-being. And philosophically, I feel that we have to begin to reconsider the foundation of how we view technology, business, and the way those things impact human well-being.
Have you always felt that way as you've gone through your career and have worked in tech spaces? Like, or is this a newer feeling because of how and where tech is today with more AI, more of the machine learning piece?
If I'm honest, I've always been a contrarian just in general. So
Okay,
I
well, we
think,
got that out the way.
if there's something that's happening, I probably think there's a good reason why it's bad. But I really have had this sense that in business in general and in tech in particular, we've been able to focus a lot on a certain kind of innovation and a certain approach to both the business and the technology that is not inclusive. And because of that lack of inclusion, and I think even in just including everyday people in understanding what the tech does and how it makes money. And that lack of understanding, I think, has led us to a point where we're seeing all of the negative consequences of not having built in those other perspectives from the beginning. And I'm not a Luddite. I'm not saying everybody has to get off their phone and start churning their own butter or something. Like that's not the message. The message is that we have to really start bringing in new perspectives in how we develop tech so that we don't develop tech that has the negative consequence that we're seeing now.
Very interesting. And so, on that note, is this the basis of this idea for you of entrepreneurship, starting this company, taking that same concept into the market and helping others? Is this the crux of your company?
Oh, absolutely. I think having been in large organizations where even in a large organization where innovation is kind of prized and thought of as important, there are still ways in which that innovative approach is not necessarily inclusive of all perspectives.
Hmm.
It's very difficult to instantiate change in a very large organization. I feel like what we really need to start doing is building the organizations that represent the perspectives that we want to see elevated.
So, working from the top down, almost finding a way to build out that organization. So, when we do need the full creative perspective, it is not so confined to the small group.
Absolutely. And I think that's something we really need to start thinking about, right? The more we concentrate the power in the tech industry and the support, the financial support in the tech industry in a smaller and smaller group of people, how does that impact the actual process of innovation?
Mm.
If only certain kinds of people have access to funding, have access to technology, have access to the tools that make innovation possible, are we actually stifling innovation itself? Because that small group of people, A, is a small group of people. So there's only so much innovation that can come from a small group of people. But B, they are also probably going to more and more be interested in maintaining the status quo rather than challenging it.
And I'm curious how you feel then about, and this may be a different piece of the tech, but for example, machine learning with a lot of data input into it from a wide and diverse amount of people. Would that be something that you support as opposed to maybe just a small amount of data put in that would control a specific direction?
So for me, it's really about consent. The AI cat is out of the bag.
Yeah.
It's like trying to put a toddler in a snowsuit. It's here. So, how do we manage it? One is consent. Frequently, people are not aware of the times and the ways in which their data that's out there is being used to teach AI.
Anything. Yeah.
That's really important. I use Facebook, I use Instagram, I do all the things. It's not that I don't do them, but you should be doing them with awareness of what is being used.
Safely.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, I think it's really important for people to try to be a part of the conversation about what AI becomes.
Mm.
Because right now, it's largely being managed by people who are seeing it as something that can be used for profit.
Yes, it is. And it is profitable. Like they're actually integrating it into everywhere from a marketing perspective, right? I mean, large amounts of data. It's very intriguing.
Well, here's a question though for you. So many companies are, we've got AI infused this and an AI that. I sometimes jokingly refer to AI as it's like mansplaining the algorithm.
Exactly. Like, for example, I have a skincare company and predictive analysis on what someone will select on a product. We know if you select X and Y, then Z will go with it. You set those things up. But we just did something with an AI company that it's like, hey, this is AI generated solution. But it's like, we already know those solutions. Like, we gave them to you, just spit out on the screen. I completely understand what you're saying. It's like, that's not a great example for everything, but it's predictively providing the information in a way that we've already supplied the data. We don't need any other machine prediction AI about this.
What's interesting to me is I feel like part of what's happening is we're getting the kind of lowest common denominator AI that's being given to the public, right? Like, do you really need an AI to write your LinkedIn post or your email or to tell you what to make for dinner? Those are very kind of low hanging fruit sort of things.
Yeah, basic tasks. How would you respond though to back to the human well-being piece? Because this is important for you. Your career is based on it. Like, do you find that since we're on the topic of this AI or doing the grocery list or something like that, does that help my well-being as someone who can maybe take that stress off or take some of these basic things away from me so I can do other things that improve the quality of my life? How do you feel about that? I know a lot of people are talking about it is give every little thing I can do away so I can improve that quality on the end game.
That's a fascinating question. And I do believe strongly that the insights AI might be able to give us about certain kinds of activities could be really interesting and really helpful, even about just kind of direct human activity. One of the things that I would love to be able to do, for example, is someday give someone the ability to predict what they need to do to clean out their garage rather than do what most people do, say, I'm going to clean out the garage. And then like 6 months later, they're sitting there with a bunch of boxes from Lowe's thinking, what's next? For me, the key is if part of the difficulty of us trying to offload a lot of the things that are low hanging fruit is that what happens is those activities frequently get put onto a person who is working in very poor conditions, probably working in more of a gig economy than someone who's getting healthcare and paid vacation. My concern is when we try to offload those things to reduce our stress, are
Mm.
we then just making someone else's life much worse?
That is an interesting thought. I've never really considered that. It can go both ways. It'll be interesting to see what comments come from this conversation in this episode. And then you take it a step further and say, but would they even have an income if I didn't offload this? How would their quality of life be? Like you can take this in so many different ways. What I appreciate so much about your approach and your company is you make people think about this in a human way and in different ways. And now we're back to inclusivity. and sensitivity of everyone. And so it's a remarkable way to remind all of us how to look at things. And so I'm curious with your company, if you're talking to most people and they think about tech, they think about someone in Google playing ping pong, 20 years old. It's this idea of it's a young person's game. What would you say to that with individual who would say that?
It's interesting to me. I think we tend to, particularly in this country, have such an emphasis on youth and the idea that young people are inherently
Yeah,
better
but with it. They're the only ones that are with it.
at things like technology. I would invite people to think about it slightly differently, if not only because ageism is the one bias that we're all going to be victim of at some point, if we're lucky. If you're lucky, someone's going to think that you're not good enough to do a job because you're too old. I think we really want to be careful about how we think about a person's age and technology and their career and all of those things. What's really interesting to me is that I don't feel that at all. I didn't feel it when I was working in a big tech company. I don't feel it now that I'm running my own tech company. For me, what's crucial is open mindedness.
Mm. At any age.
Yeah, it's not about how old you are. It's about whether or not you're willing to accept new ideas, try them on, and learn about them so that you can move forward with them.
You might have just unlocked the secret to living in any world that is evolving. It's just being open and the ideas that come when you see even different, if it's the holidays or birthday parties or family gatherings, it's the idea of the generational difference. My son was recently wanting to play chess with his grandfather, my dad. My dad's waiting for him to lug out the chess set, the pieces and the heavy board. He's like, "Where is it?" And my son's like, "What? Give me your phone. I'm going to put this app on your phone. And that's how we're going to play chess." And my dad, is just like, "Wait, what?" But then quickly it's like, "Oh, okay. This is quick. This is fast. We can still do the same thing." Watching them and my father work through that, he wasn't put off at all. It was like, "All right, this is how we're going to do it. Let's do it." And they still had a great experience together, but it's being open to that new way. And it's a technology and it's a change in how it's being done. So it's a good attitude too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for a lot of us, I think for women as well, there can be a tendency to, oh, I can't do that.
I don't do that well. Oh, I
Yeah,
don't do that
I'm not
well.
good at math,
Not good
right?
at
I'm not
that.
good at math. I'm not good at tech. I think part of that is that there is a little bit of a thing in the tech world of people who have traditionally been the people who succeed in tech, largely white men, kind of also taking this. I've totally had this experience with engineers. Like, I'm a wizard that understands technology, and you can't possibly understand what I'm talking about. But in my experience as a leader, usually if I can't understand what you're talking about, it's because you're not being clear.
Right. I'm not the problem. I'm
Yeah,
not the
your
problem.
job as the engineer is to explain this thing to me as the stakeholder, not to obfuscate your inability to explain. It's one of the things I love about the team that I have now, my tech team now. They explain things well. And if I have a question, and I will ask some pretty detailed but also naive questions of them about how what we're engineering works, they explain it to me rather than kind of.
Speaking over you. Yeah. I'm curious if a client comes to you, one of your clients, are they looking for advice on how to implement this human well being approach? Or do they even understand that they have an issue and maybe that they actually need this without knowing? What is the need of people when they're coming to you?
So that's interesting because right now we're working on our debut offering, which is an app called Fin, Positive Productivity. And that really operates at the individual level.
Okay.
The shorthand I use for it is it's Fitbit for your tasks. And the idea is that by allowing people not to just check something off a list, but to track what days they're most productive, how they feel about things when they get them done, how they feel about them when they don't get them done, that it helps to reduce people's anxiety about their to-do list.
Mm.
And we also have in-app coaching with a live person. I also have a little bit of a background as a project manager. If you put clean out the garage on your to-do list, the coach is going to reach in and say, that is a project, not a task. If you put that on your to-do list, it's going to sit there and make you miserable, whatever. Let's break it down. So really we're operating at the individual level, but we are developing 2 lines of business for 2025, one of which is going to be a course largely directed at new managers, new people leaders on how to manage other people's productivity in a way that focuses on everybody's well-being, including the managers.
Hmm.
Because for new managers, frequently that's the thing that is the most stressful and the most difficult to learn.
And at the core of it, like you said, the Fitbit piece, listening to people talk, and I don't wear one, but the Aura ring, I haven't done that either. But I hear everyone talking about my sleep and my REM and how much time I had last night. And it's interesting. And I asked the question, are you still wearing it? They're like, no, not any longer, because I actually learned enough about what wasn't working well for me while I was sleeping, changed my pattern, and now I'm good to go. What I love about your tool and your app and your programs that you have is, while it can be ongoing as well, it's there to help us understand how we work best individually. And I'm sure we're all different, right? You come across many different patterns, but to know that and to be able to help us better understand that is incredible.
It's so funny, like, we were talking about AI before. I think for me, the dream about having data and having an opportunity to aggregate it would be to help people understand what profile they have
Hmm.
and allow them to let that profile be okay.
Hmm.
So my dream, in a sense, in terms of AI, as you were saying before, like, what's the purpose of AI? Is like, can we give someone a profile and say, you know what? There are people like you who need to wait until the last minute to finish a thing all over the world. And you know what? They get their stuff done. What you need to do is let go of the anxiety around waiting because you're a person who waits, and that's okay.
It's time for a quick sponsored ad from EMK Skincare. It's my skincare secret I swear by and love it so much. I bought the company. EMK was founded over 30 years ago in Beverly Hills and is crafted from science-backed research of human placenta and the bioidentical properties to placenta found in nature. High-potency, plant-powered formulas with clinically proven ingredients. Anti-aging is just not realistic, but healthy aging skin is. And it's why this brand is loved by dermatologists, plastic surgeons, estheticians for its healing ingredients and reduced downtime after procedures. It's my secret to glowing skin, even on my busiest days, my travel days, and my longest work days. Visit emkskincare.com to sign up for emails and receive 15% off your first purchase. Now back to the episode. Give us permission to work how we work. I think that is a great tip for our listeners, even is you've learned so much by looking at these profiles and working with so many people on how people actually do work. Hey, ladies, it's okay. Let it go. This is figuring out what you do well, when you do it well, and just do it and let go. I love that. I work differently most days. I feel like every day is a little bit different for me, Kerry Ann, in terms of my approach. I always say I'm either a walker or a sprinter. Maybe it's a marathon kind of week, but it's different. And I think I recognize that and I give myself enough grace to be okay with that and know that I'm going to meet my deadline. It's just going to be on how I meet it. And that may look a little bit different every week.
That's beautiful that you have that self-compassion around that. And I think a lot of people don't.
It's learned.
Yeah.
I learned it over time. Trust me.
But that's the thing is it took me a long, long time to learn that. That was for me a journey because having grown up the way I did, ambitious, always having to do more, going to school where you had to always do more for high school, for undergrad, for graduate school, it definitely can be difficult to just sit down and recognize my way of doing this is my way of doing this, and that's okay.
I hope that someone listening to us right now is like, there's hope, ladies. Like, there is hope that you will figure this out. It took you a long time, it took me a really long time. And don't get me wrong, sometimes it enters my mind, and then I'm like, no, no, I've got this. This is just how I'm working this today. Tomorrow might look a little bit different, but that's okay. There's hope for everyone out there.
And don't beat yourself up about it. Talking about the mentoring piece, I think one of the main messages that I end up giving people, women, but all people that I've mentored over the years is you have to just allow yourself to be yourself. There's no amount of optimizing yourself that's going to make you a different person. And I'm a person who works out on a regular basis. I'm a person who sets goals on a regular basis. I'm a person who tracks things of all sorts. However, I'm doing those things so that I can achieve the things I want, not so that I can compare myself to someone else, their way of doing things, their vision of what success means. I think that's really important.
Looking in the mirror, and that's good mentorship advice. Share with us some of your mentors that you've had along the way.
The way I live in the world is that everybody that I encounter might have something to teach me. And it doesn't matter what their position is, it doesn't matter what their experience is. That person has something to teach me.
When did you realize that? I agree with you. And that's why I love these mentor moments that we share, right? Because it's like you giving us your advice, the way you look at things today is your person now in the world that we get to learn from. So when did you realize that? Was there a moment where you sort of were like, okay, well, I've learned this from this, and all of that has helped me, like this cumulative effect?
I think really it was when I was at a point in my career, as we've discussed, I had a bit of a meandering path and I had gone to graduate school. I had started to have my kids, and my last pregnancy was very high risk. So I ended up leaving graduate school and becoming a fitness instructor and then entering kind of the corporate world. Because of my trajectory, I was frequently a little bit older than the person who was managing me, just because I had started later. And it was really that experience. And that's where I would really shout out Carrie Bradley and Andrea McCoy. They were great mentors for me in terms of learning to understand how the corporate world worked. And really, they both were kind and focused on my abilities and the things that they knew that I could bring to the team, and really very nurturing of what was great about me and really good at giving feedback about things that I needed to learn.
And I'm sure that was a great soft landing for you to have those two ladies in that corporate world that you were navigating in, coming into it from a new perspective. How are you managing mentorship within your company and the people that you are now mentoring, Kerry Ann?
For me, every meeting that we have is a mentorship moment. I do have one-on-one meetings with my team. I have two developers in Africa, one in Accra and one in Kigali. They're amazing. That's another thing that we're working on right now is putting together a business plan for us to offer consultative services because
Okay.
our working relationship has just been so great. They're absolutely terrific engineers and incredibly smart and trustworthy and funny. And like it's just been such a great experience.
And it's such a distance. I mean, you're doing this remotely and you're able to still communicate so effectively and so well. I think that's a lesson in itself. How do you do that? I mean, what is your secret sauce to communicating so effectively and mentoring and guiding and working with these folks?
So I think for me, the number one is I put everybody through an interview process like any other interview process. And I think that's one of the things that I think frequently gets people in trouble with offshoring is they do it in a kind of anonymous way. Like they go on Fiverr and they're like, this person looks like they know what they're doing. I'm just going to email them. It's very difficult, I think, to have a successful relationship in that kind of an environment. I interviewed about 20 people, all of them in Ghana or Rwanda, and did it the way I would have done under any other circumstance.
Okay.
But then I think the really important things are curiosity. Don't make any assumptions about what a person thinks, what their life is like, what they're capable of, really entering each relationship with a sense of curiosity and also communicating, particularly when you're communicating across time zones frequently enough and, for lack of a better word, with genuineness.
Okay. That makes sense. It's like you're not just doing it because it's work and you want this to work out and you want to be effective. You genuinely care about the person that you're speaking with. And I think the curiosity piece is great because we often, all of us, make many assumptions, or we just don't care enough to ask. I don't know what it is. Are we lazy or we just don't care? We're just assuming so much. And I often wonder which one it's more of. But I think you're right. For it to be as successful as you have it, that is really great advice for us listening because we all have different teams in different parts of the world, potentially, or even the country, if they're not in the same office with you. And quite frankly, these lessons apply in the same office as well.
Oh, absolutely. Particularly when I'm working with younger people who I'm mentoring, helping them approach difficulties with a sense of curiosity and perspective taking is job number one. Whatever's going on, that boss who you are mad at, they might be awful. It's absolutely true. But the way to solve the problem, especially if it's making you uncomfortable or unhappy, is to try to figure out what's going on from their perspective.
That's right. I always say, in my sales team, even if you don't know how to solve the problem just yet, what is the problem? Why are they asking for this? What is driving them to even want this? And I think that often gives the solution in itself, knowing why they want it. And so I think it applies to so much that curiosity. It's like we need to know because you don't have to waste your time assuming.
Exactly. And particularly with sales, I think the best salespeople are people who are genuinely curious in that way. My father was essentially in sales and he just loved people and wanted to know about them. If they were interested in something, he would go and learn about it. But it wasn't some conscious sales tactic that he was using. It was just the way he saw the world. And that's very, very powerful. And it just makes life more fun.
Doesn't it? When someone really cares.
Yeah. And it's nicer for you. It's nicer to go through the world being like, I wonder what this person's life is like and what would be interesting to them rather than, this person again. Like that negative framework informs how you feel in the world as much as how you interact with people.
And I think it speaks on mindset and where our mind is and how that can impact so much of our day. How would you speak to someone and what advice would you give on establishing the right mindset and transforming that for more positive encounters with other humans?
It's tough. I feel like the word is getting overused lately in the world, but I do feel like compassion for yourself and for others is really important. And why I use the word compassion as opposed to something like empathy is that action is in the definition of compassion. Compassion is designed as feeling for someone's plight and wanting to act. And you
Mm.
can take that attitude towards yourself and towards someone else.
It helps it ignite that action almost if you can turn it inward.
Exactly. I was driving upstate recently, and I don't know if you've ever driven across the George Washington Bridge at rush hour.
I have it. Do I want to?
I don't recommend it.
Anxiety levels are just starting to climb.
I drove to JFK to pick my son up. He was coming home from Australia, and I got 2 minutes in my heart rate zone from driving in Queens. Like, driving in New York City is like a whole other thing.
It is.
When we're in that situation, it's so easy to get, oh, like, why these people and nobody's following the rules and grr. And just being able to say, like, first of all, everybody on this bridge has something going on
That's right.
that I don't understand. And also, I've got my own stuff going on. I don't need to get this upset. What am I going to save if I change lanes now or a minute from now?
Or take a U turn.
Yeah, exactly.
I find that, I mean, I'm in Dallas and the traffic is insane. It's not like New York, but there's instances where it's the 5-lane change to not miss an exit that almost kills several people. And it's like, just please, just keep driving. Like, just U-turn when you get to the next. I promise it's going to be okay. Like that one, it's like you just think, man. But approaching it with compassion, it's a great reminder today on how to feel because hopefully we get to empathy. But I often think people stop with empathy and it doesn't feel great. It's like, okay, glad to know that you understand what's going on. And then we just sort of move on to a different topic. And I think when you stop there, it's not helpful sometimes to other people. So I think those steps are good for the other one. And like you said, for yourself,
Yeah, because it gives you a sense of having been effective.
effective, which makes us both feel good.
Exactly. If you stop before you have an impact, then you lose the ability to have that sense of having done something for another person, which there's even science behind the fact that that actually is really good for us.
Kerry Ann, I know we talked about your new app you're working on with your company, with Illuminate Labs. I know you have a big vision. How is it that we can support you? Are you signing folks up right now for testing or beta for your company? I mean, I'm sure you're testing a lot of things out before this hits the market. Do you mind sharing with us, or is it too early?
No, absolutely. The app is in the App Store, it's in the Play Store. We just added an in app chat feature. So you can just use the app the way it is.
Okay, because I know you're working on updates.
Yeah, it'll just feed you the information, but you can also sign up for coaching, and your coach will literally chat you in the app. You've had this on your list for 5 days. Is this something you need to do? If it is something you need to do, let's figure out how to do it.
It's the voice behind your calendar. Because it's easy for us to just delete it or move it. I move things. I just moved it to next week, right? But then you have actually somebody who will help with action on this app and help us actually get this done. So your ideal person. So for everyone listening, it's like all of us who have these long to-do lists, these jam-packed calendars, these time blocks, big goals, how to break them down, how to actually get them done. Is that what this app is for, Kerry Ann?
Absolutely. I think we're also looking for people who are finding themselves unable, for whatever reason, to let go of the grinding anxiety of that lifestyle and not really understanding necessarily why they're doing all the things. One of the features that we have, which has been really interesting to see who uses the snooze feature and who doesn't. We have a snooze feature. If you snooze a task, it doesn't count against you in your to-do list because you made a choice.
Hmm. Okay.
You made an active choice on what to do about it.
So it gives you a little bonus point almost. Not that you're gamifying this, but I can see that. That makes sense.
Yeah, but it's really interesting. Anecdotally, men are more likely to snooze a thing than women because I think we're socialized to feel like we have to do it all.
Do. Yes. And men are like, we'll get to it.
Yeah, or like you have permission. Some people feel like they have permission to make those decisions and some people don't.
Interesting. I was thinking, you see all this data behind the app. You can see people's behaviors. Very interesting from a whole, I imagine. As a one on one user, this is helping me, but you're actually seeing it from your academia, studying the data of this and analyzing it. What have you noticed? I mean, like you just said, men are likely to maybe snooze something and women aren't. Have you noticed anything else? I'm curious.
The other thing that I've noticed that I find fascinating is how people sneak up on productivity. We're getting people who are having productivity challenges, and we'll have people who come into the app, and we're pretty sure we don't have a ton of data, but we're pretty sure this isn't just an effective over time, but it's the app. People will start, they'll do a couple things, they'll put a couple of routines in there. The example I'll use is like, I'm going to take a walk every day. So the person will do it once, then stop for a couple of days, and then they'll do it again, and then they'll stop for 5 days. But then there comes a point where it's almost like an engine turning over, and they do it once and they do it again. And then suddenly they're off and running and they're suddenly doing it 40 times in a row.
Hmm. So maybe a slow start, just a little like an engine going, and then it propels off.
Yeah, which I think it's really interesting to me when particularly looking ahead to the new year and people wanting to build new habits. It's so easy when you're trying to build a new habit, if you fail a couple of times, being like, I'm just not a person who's going to take a walk every day, or I'm never going to be a person who drinks water enough, or whatever that habit is that you're trying to develop. Don't give up so soon, because we're seeing evidence that if you don't give up, if you keep it on your radar, if you keep trying, it will click over.
Okay, that's good motivation because it's essentially don't give up. It sounds so okay, okay. But it's like you don't have to be perfectly consistent on day one. That's what I heard. That's all I heard. You don't have to be absolutely perfect at it immediately. That's really interesting. Well, I cannot wait to see how your data and your observations, what they look like in another year and another few years with your company and what you end up doing with those data points and how you help us all with that. So we'll link the app in our show notes and make sure folks can find it and download it and use it for productivity and better understanding their habits. This is wonderful. So kudos to you and your team.
Oh, thank you so much. We're super excited about it. We're excited to have people give us feedback because we're really making this for us, not just for our team, not just for the company, but for us so that we can all feel better and be productive without feeling ground down and depleted.
Your timing for this is impeccable. I was just at a conference last week, a woman on stage, very successful, very successful. She said, this is the first year in 40 years that I've ever cried, just broke down and decided I can't do it all. Like I've got all these different roles as mom and wife and business owner, all these different things and these expectations that she's putting on herself. She said, I don't even think they have them on me. And she said, this year I just broke down. And I think we all get to certain points in certain points of our life. And it made me happen frequently. But it was interesting, because she was really looking inward, trying to figure out how do I change this? I don't want to break down again. I want to feel whole. I want to feel like I'm doing it. And I thought her message was plenty of women in the audience were asking about, like, hey, how do you balance all this with being a mom? And how do you do all this? And she was honest enough to say that I try very hard, but I also break down. It's okay. It happens. And what I love about the timing of what you're providing for all of us is we can avoid that, hopefully. We can mitigate some of that and save the energy for something else.
Oh, absolutely. I think about this all the time. It's about rupture and repair. That comes from Fred Pine. He's a psychoanalyst who wrote about childhood development, but it really is such a great concept for everything. You can break down, you can repair.
And pick yourself back up. Yeah.
You can have a blowout with a colleague or an employee or a boss. Can you repair? Finding the space to repair to me is really the task, not to not fail, but to learn to repair.
That's interesting. This conversation, we can talk forever.
I know. It's like it's been so great.
I know. Okay. What would your mentor moment be for all of us before you leave us today? This is going to be not the one thing and not the only thing, but something that will be a mentor moment for someone else.
I thought about this a lot, and there's so many things that I think are important, but I really landed on you have to do it, whatever it is. The idea of manifesting is something that comes up a lot, particularly in women's spaces. And you can do it and you have to do it, whatever it is. Write the book, start the business, start the podcast. Don't allow the questions that you have in your mind about whether or not you're capable or whether or not you'll even succeed. Plenty of people succeed, plenty of people fail. If you do it, you learn more, you experience more, and you create something, even if it doesn't turn out to be what you thought it was going to be.
Give us the courage and the drive and the reminder to do it. I love that. Thank you for that advice. And Kerry Ann, where can we all find you and support you and follow you?
So you can follow me on LinkedIn. Illuminate Labs is on Facebook and Instagram. The name of the company is Illuminate with an E. So illuminatelabs.com is also out there. I love hearing from people and I love hearing other people's ideas. Like I said, I feel like I learn from everybody. So if you think you have something to teach me, reach out because I would love to hear from you.
Kerry Ann, thank you for being a guest today. It's been a wonderful, wonderful conversation. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
Before you go, a huge thank you for being a part of this episode. I hope it left you with a spark of inspiration. And if you haven't already, hit that follow button and subscribe button to stay connected. Now is a great time. Your reviews are the heartbeat of our podcast. So if you enjoyed what you heard today, a review would really mean the world to us. Let's keep this conversation going as well on Instagram at Rani Alfers. Visit us at ranialfers.com for all episodes, show notes, and also to express your interest to be a guest. Please sign up. We'd love to hear from you. And until next time, I'll see you back on Working Women Mentor.